I've heard that a lot of people in the diaspora don't like them because they're secretly trying to have as much power as the IRGC for their own methods, and like it would be just as bad or similar evil, the MEK.
Oh, the MEK, yes, yes. I thought you were talking about Pahlavi.
No, no,
But
no,
yeah,
no, no,
no, the
no.
MEK is
Like because they try to hide themselves as like, okay, we want Islam too, but we were going to reform it, and it's going to be a little bit more moderate. But they're just lying, right?
It's very cultish. Like when you see them, they all wear like the same outfit. They all wear the same color. They all chant the same chants. Like it's just, it reminds me very much of like a cult in the Bohemian Grove. Like it's very creepy. And you can just tell right away, even just from looking at their leader, Mariam Rajavi, like you can tell she's off. Like something is not right with her. So yeah, they're not very popular, but unfortunately they are like a different group. And so a lot of the leftists, a lot of the liberal left-wing, crowd, they say, oh, well, why don't you guys bring in the MEK? Even some of the right wing even in like Rudy Giuliani and Tucker Carlson and Mike Pompeo, like they
fake
even
right wing,
fake right, but like even they endorsed MEK, which was kind of like, oh shit, like these are people that were at one point close to President Trump. So a lot of people were worried that he was going to try to like go toward that direction, but thankfully that hasn't been the case. Like they have no chance. Like there's just no.
So your family would want a constitutional monarchy, like post Pahlavi, like where he stays as like a ceremonial figure, kind of? Would they want that?
It would basically be like the European countries, right? Like the UK, like Sweden, like Norway. Like they have a monarchy, but they're not the rulers. Like they don't
a constitutional monarchy.
Like there's still a president or a prime minister, or there's still like a secular government where they kind of make all the decisions, but the monarchy is like there. They just kind of chill out in the background. So I feel like that would be more appropriate. And even like Prince Reza Pahlavi himself, he said that. He said, I want this to be a more secular democracy. I mean, whatever my people want, I'm here, but that would be more the direction that we would like to go toward. And they already have like a whole plan in place for if and when the regime were to fall, what that would be like.
And that would be like the removal of Sharia law, right?
I mean, Muslims could still obviously practice like, Islam, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, that's not very nice, but it is a big part of the Middle East, and so we do have a lot of Iranian Muslims that do support Reza Pahlavi. So it's not really fair to say to ban it or to, I mean,
no, but not ban it, but not make it mandatory. So like it's not married into the government as a theocratic state where there is a separation of church and state is what I'm saying.
It would be exactly like before 1979.
Perfect.
Where the LGBTQ would be safe. They would have full rights. They don't have to be worried about persecution. All religions would be able to practice freely. I mean, dancing, singing, riding a motorcycle, being able to hold hands with your partner in person, being able to kiss them in public without getting arrested. All of those things would become the norm again. And they wouldn't have to worry about those simple things.
So like that list that you just said, it's so absurd that those things are like even
psychotic.
Like
it's the bare minimum of a human being, of a society, and what the hell?
Right.
I mean, these people are so sick. I mean, the fact that they say that you cannot hold your partner's hand and kiss them in public, but you can marry a 9-year-old girl.
Can you punch your partner in public?
The men can. Well, actually, I don't know how those laws exactly. Like, there's like details, right? So, like for example, like if you are in a marital dispute within your home, it's permissible. Like as long as there's no broken bones or any fractures, it's okay, right? But like for example, if you were to be married and you go behind your wife's back and marry somebody else and she finds out about it, she can sue you and legally get a divorce from you. So like there's like things like that where it's kind of like, like that's weird. Like that's okay, but that's not okay.
So is it true that right now in Iran there's no like central command because they're all like just not communicated? So like one part of the IRGC is operating here, one part's operating here, and they don't really have like a unified form of leadership right now.
No.
Does that make it harder to stop?
Well, the thing is that they brought in the Ayatollah's son, but his wife was already claimed to be dead. His children are dead. All of the commanders surrounding him are dead. Now they're saying that he's brain dead in the
heard that
hospital
too.
and that he has no leg. So he's pretty much dead. I don't know why they're trying to like drag this on.
I thought he was already dead, like dead.
A lot of people said he was already dead, but then they said he's in a coma, and then they said he's brain dead, and that he lost a leg. So I don't know what's going on with that. But I just feel like it's all like a tactic to kind of like keep things going, to like show unity, like, hey, like we're still here, we're still going strong. Like, you know, like I don't know if you ever seen that meme. There's like a dog sitting at the kitchen table, and there's like fire surrounding the dog, and he's like, everything is fine.
Yeah.
That's them.
Welcome, everyone. Today we are thrilled to welcome our first ever guest, Jasmine Soprano, an Iranian ex-Muslim badass. I reckon that's a fair description. I mean, Iranians all over the world have been putting Westerners to shame lately. You guys are fighting Islam on the front lines, while most of the West is either completely oblivious to what's going on or doing nothing but bitch and moan about it. So I'm really glad that I get to welcome you to our roundtable.
Thank you for having me.
And I think we should start off by asking you, like, what's your take on everything that's going on in Iran, the Trump's attack on the regime? Because there's a lot of misguided Westerners that choose to criticize it, and well, a lot of them, I think they do it because Israel is involved as well. Because let's be honest, Israel could cure cancer tomorrow, and they would still criticize it. But yeah, like, what is your take as an Iranian on what's going on?
Well, it is a lot of mixed emotions. I will say that. On the one hand, of course, you know, it is unfortunate to see that it has to be done in this particular way. But on the other hand, I also feel ecstatic that finally the United States has a president that is bold enough and strong enough and courageous enough to stand up to these people after the amount of times they've threatened him and, you know, tried to assassinate him. And I mean, just the fact that they want us to die. They want Americans to die. They say death to America any chance that they get. And the fact that we've never had a president before that's done something about this or spoken out about how horrific this is. You know, I used to be a hardcore leftist, hardcore liberal. So if you would have asked me this 6 years ago, I would have probably said the same talking points of, oh, we shouldn't be bombing them. Oh, that's not fair. Oh, this isn't the way to do it. But now I've kind of, in the last 3 years, I've turned to the more conservative side. And I'm starting to see how the people inside are reacting to it. And honestly, if they're happier that they are being bombed rather than staying in this dictatorship and staying in this disgusting, evil theocracy, then I have to respect it. And I do, very much so. And, you know, I also feel like with the death of the Ayatollah, too, that was a huge pinpoint in our history. This was something that, for a majority of Iranians, was a joyful event that I don't think anyone is ever going to forget in history. And, you know, it was because of Donald Trump. So on the one hand, you know, like I said, I don't want to, you know, say, oh, everything's 100% perfect. The thing is, too, is that with this specific entity, this evil demonic entity, they've mentioned several times, like, listen, if you guys want us gone, we're not just going to go. We're going to kill as many people as we can before we're going to leave. Whereas our king, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, when, you know, the people revolted in 1979, the communist Marxist Islamists, when they wanted him out, he left, went on a plane and took off. Simple. He didn't fight. He didn't even kill one person in the streets that came out and protested against him. Even the people that went and took all of the, not all of them, but a majority of the Americans at the embassy hostage, even at that time, they didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, some people say that's a mistake, that they should have. But on the other hand, when you talk to Iranians inside and outside of Iran, not necessarily my generation, maybe like the older generation, like my parents, for example, they say that him leaving was the smartest thing to do, because if he wouldn't have left and if he would have decided to retaliate and kill those protesters, the Marxists, then those same Islamist leftists would have said, "Oh, you guys didn't let our imam come. You are the, you're a dictator, right?" But that's not the case. So now, with his possibly, hopefully anyway, from my opinion, hopefully if his son were to come into power, a lot of these same leftist Islamists are saying, "Oh, well, he's going to be just like his dad, a dictator." Which to me, I don't understand how somebody that gave women full rights. I mean, women were able to serve in parliament. We had judges that were women. Women were able to get custody of their children. Women were able to get a divorce and get, all of those, the benefits that women in America get when they get a divorce, right? So to say that he was a dictator is a reach. And I feel like his son is a more, I don't know how to explain it. He's just a very calm, cool, collected individual. And I feel like it would not be the case if his son were to come into power for them to say that, because they already are saying it. They make fun of him a lot. They talk a lot of crap about him. They spread rumors about him online. I mean,
Yeah.
the shame that these people do not have of criticizing a man that has basically given his entire life to the movement, to his people, right? From the age of 19 to now, 47 years later. I mean, could you imagine just the fact that, in a sense, which some people might not agree with me when I say this, your people betrayed your father, right? So why would you want to come and take this position after such a horrible betrayal, after such a heartbreak? I mean, the Shah died of a broken heart, along with, he also had many health issues. Of course, he had a spleen surgery that was completely botched. And I don't know how that happened, because he had one of the world-renowned surgeons in the United States do his surgery. And for some reason, when you do this kind of a surgery, you're supposed to drain the spleen, and this surgeon did not do that. So the Shah ended up later died of an infection. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it doesn't really line up. So
yeah.
But to say the least is that I feel like it's more than what he deserves. And if I were him, I would just keep living my life. But the fact that he's given so much of his time and energy, I mean, even within these last 3 months, if you look at films and like footage of him from 3-4 months ago and look at what he looks like today, I mean, he's grown like 10 years. He's aged so much just from the stress alone.
Yeah.
I mean, could you
and you do, like, you were mentioning that, and I was thinking, I think it was in Bulgaria, that somewhat recently, they had their, the heir to the crown come back and be elected. I think it was prime minister, and he had the exact opposite relationship to the country, because basically he got elected, but he had no real love for the country, because basically he privatized most of what he could privatize, and then he pissed off and took all the money. And so it is pretty rare to see someone that, pretty much spent his entire life in exile, because, his countrymen kicked his father out of power and out of the
He
country.
lost his dad at 19. Like,
Yeah.
The fact that his father didn't even get to see him be an adult, didn't get to see him get married, have children. 2 of his siblings ended up later committing suicide, his younger sister and his younger brother, from the devastation, and the trauma, I'm sure, of having to live once as royalty and then be in exile in an apartment in the middle of nowhere. And then they bounced from country to country. You know, first they went to, I believe it was Turkey. Then they went to Egypt for a little bit. Then they wanted to go to the United States, but President Carter didn't let them come to the United States. Then they wanted to go back.
Communist Carter.
He is the absolute worst.
I mean, he's the reason why this happened anyway.
Absolute worst. The Democrat Party was very supportive of this transition from overthrowing the Shah to bringing in the Ayatollah, along with France. France was a huge part of this operation as well.
And not to be conspiracy either, but I'm going to say it anyway. Nicaragua at the same time had the same thing happen to the poor Iranians, which was they had a guy who was a dictator named Somoza, and he had a shipment of guns that was coming in from Cuba to Nicaragua for his National Guard. It was seized by Jimmy Carter's Navy or whichever government entity from the United States seized it. And the communist rebels in Nicaragua were backed by the USSR. They were called the Sandinistas. They overtook the presidential palace, killed all of Somoza's guards. Somoza flees in a plane like the Shah fled, and Nicaragua fell. And to this day, the dictator that overthrew Somoza with Carter's help is still in power. And recently, 2 years ago, he even expropriated the Catholic Church. You can't even practice Catholicism the same way anymore in Nicaragua. So it's similar, and it happened in the same government, which I find kind of strange that it was
no wonder
President
there's
Carter's
so many
government.
refugees. Nicaragua. I can't even say it. Sorry, but there's no wonder there's so many refugees in Mexico and the United States. No, a lot of Nicaraguan people. It's really interesting. I didn't even know that.
And then
Yeah,
after
but
that,
doesn't surprise me.
After that, the United States wanted to save them by backing a counter-revolutionary group called the Contra Movement, but Congress wouldn't give Ronald Reagan the money to fund them. So what he was doing is, he was buying weapons, selling them with Iran, with the Ayatollah, using CIA covert ops, my country, Colombia, bringing money through the Pablo Escobar cartels, and using that money to fund weapons for the Contra. But then when the Oliver North scandal, and then when that happened, the press in America was in an uproar, and then the money stopped, and then without the money, you can't fight a war. So the Contras were defeated, and any hope that Nicaragua had of freedom ended there. Just like with the Americans not saving the hostages in Iran. So I saw a really cool micro documentary from the Richard Nixon Foundation, where Richard Nixon was really good friends with the Shah, was talking about how it was a shame. And I think I don't know if he was with Barbara Walters. He was with one of those really leftist liberal journalists, where she was pressing him saying, "Oh, but the Shah was a dictator. He was hated by his people." He's like, yes and no, not fully the case, but there was no freedom at all with the Ayatollahs, and how America did really, really poorly not freeing those hostages and allowing a friend like the Shah to fall this way.
Last episode, I read a list of everything that the Shah implemented, and it's there's no conceivable way that anyone would hate a leader like that, because just from reading the list of giving women rights and all of that, just reading the list without any other information attached to it, you can tell that this is someone that deeply cared about his country. And
yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're a Muslim, you can't hate someone like that.
Yeah.
And and the thing, and they're still using that type of propaganda to justify the regime, and to criticize now Trump and Israel for attacking it. You're still seeing it to this day with the way that Iranians now, because now you do have, and we also talked about that in the last episode, now you do have a lot of people in the West criticizing this whole thing, and their justification is, there's never been a regime change in the Middle East that has worked. This is only going to cause more refugees, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, to compare Iranians to, the Iraqis and the Syrians and the Afghanistans, it's so ludicrous, really. And you can tell because, like, for example, in your case, like, you were born in America
Hmm.
and you feel American, I'm assuming, while also
Yeah.
feeling Iranian, and like, you do have love for both countries. You're not out there burning the American flag
Mm.
and and crying dead to America as all these so-called refugees from these other countries are. And and that's a very important distinction between all the Iranians that uh, some like you were already born in exile, and the first generation that fled in 79 and fled during the 80s.
Hmm.
You can see the appreciation and the love that they have for the countries that welcome them.
Yeah.
Um,
I've noticed that a lot about the Iranian diaspora. No matter what country it is, whether it's the UK, whether it's Germany, whether it's even the United States, we love our host countries. We're very grateful for our host countries. Um, and it's almost like a sense of like patriotism that we are proud of the culture of the host country. And to even think about burning the flag of the country that took us in, right? Well, not me necessarily, but that took them in and provided them like a safe haven. And to
yeah,
think of burning that flag and disrespecting the culture, not assimilating, not wanting to um, behave in society, right? It's almost dumbfounding to us, right? Even to like my parents specifically. I mean, my parents, they speak 3-4 languages. No matter what country they went to, they assimilated. They learned the language, they learned the culture, and they behaved. They were, upright citizens.
yeah,
So, but then you have, unfortunately, the children of the immigrants that they're now obviously toward the left, where even here in Germany where I live, you see them in the streets and they say things like "F you Deutschland," right? Like they curse.
Wait, you mean Iranian children's immigrants
No, no,
or from
no.
other countries?
No, no, no. Latin, more like, well, some of them may be Iranian. I don't know, but majority of them that are toward the left are either of different ethnicities or maybe of the pro-Palestinian
Yeah.
crowd, not necessarily like one specific race. It's all pretty diverse. But they're very disrespectful. They're very, very rude, arrogant, ungrateful, unappreciative.
And probably uneducated too.
Well, it's actually really funny because I said the same thing, but majority of these people, if you notice, especially in the United States, they all come from education. They
Yeah,
all
but they're
come
all
from
like
Ivy
they're all
League
these new
schools.
age degrees,
No,
like
no,
gender study or this
yeah, I
study
mean,
or
like
this new degree.
but I understand like what you mean, Jen. Like in depth, yeah, they're not educated, but
Yeah.
on paper they're educated, right? Like they
Yeah,
all
they
go to
have
like
the-
Harvard and Yale and like Columbia, right? Oh my God, like but
So I
they're
read a study a few years ago that in Iran, only 40% or 38% of the country are actually like devout, practicing Muslims. Is that because Iran has always had a history of like from the Zoroastrian times to like they've always had the different type of cultures that were before Islam came in, or is that also because people are so fed up with the IRGC that I've seen so many Iranians that claim to be atheists online, and that when they were living in Iran, they pretended to be Muslim so they wouldn't get like beaten up? What's your
Mhm.
take on that?
So the atheist thing is actually really heartbreaking because a majority of the Iranians that become atheists, especially it's not so much in the diaspora, it's more within Iran.
Yeah.
Like even if you go up to people in the streets, like they'll admit it. They'll say that we don't believe in God. And it's not because of a random thought of like, oh, Big Bang Theory of science. Like it has nothing to do with that. It's because they've been through so much suffering and they've prayed and prayed and prayed from a young age. They believe that prayer is the way to go, especially if they grew up Muslim or Christian or whatever the case may be. They prayed so much and they saw that their prayers were not answered.
yeah.
I mean, how can you really believe in God after that? When you're praying and you're praying and you're saying, God, help me, please, and nothing happens, nothing changes. I would become an atheist too, quite frankly. So I think that's kind of where the atheist part comes in. As far as like the Muslim part, like for me personally, what happened is that I actually opened a book one day and I actually found out about the true history of how Islam came into Iran, which was in the 7th century with the Islamic Caliphate. It was the first Islamic Caliphate. It was around 600 CE, 613 CE. And the more I started reading about it, the more horrified I was. The more devastated I was, the more I felt like, wow, like this is horrific. They destroyed so much. They destroyed our, our architecture, our buildings. I mean, Persepolis is a perfect example of what happened in the Caliphate. They completely destroyed the entire place. And I mean, yes, there are some areas where it's still standing, but at the time it was a beautiful place. I mean, it was like a paradise, So to see that and then to read what they did to our women and to read of the torture that they endured from the hands of these people who were absolutely evil. I mean, just absolutely demonic. They forced them to not only convert to Islam, but the women that were sexually abused and they would become pregnant, they would force those women to have their children to create this like Islamic line, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the more I started reading into it and the more I realized that we were originally Zoroastrian and that we were conquered and colonized in such a disgusting way, that was my number one main reason I left Islam in the first place. Because I just felt like if I continued to preach about a religion that essentially wanted to exterminate my true race, right? My true ethnicity. What kind of a person does that make me? Because everyone around me is Muslim, that I have to stay Muslim? Or because it's trending right now, because we have 2 billion Muslims in the world? I don't care.
Like-
Respectfully, I don't care about that. You know?
When did
How old
you
were you?
stop being a Muslim? When did you convert? Or deconvert, or I don't know how to say it.
So my parents were, not my parents, my family were 8th-generation Muslim, 8 generations. So
Wow.
yeah, so when my parents, they divorced in 2010. Yeah, 2010 they divorced. And me and my mother and my father, even though they divorced and they weren't really like on the best terms, we basically at that time collectively as a family left the religion at the same time. It wasn't really like a meeting we had like, hey, like we're going to leave Islam, but we basically just stopped going to the mosque. We stopped praying 5 times a day. We stopped doing the Ramadan thing, the whole fasting. We stopped it all together. But it wasn't really like a conversation, if that makes sense. It just kind of naturally happened. I don't know if that was, I mean, my siblings, they very much are still into the Islam thing. They're very much pro-Palestinian leftist.
No.
They like to have that ideology, but I feel like it's more because their friends and the people that they're around are into that ideology. So I think that's why they do it. Because I mean, my sister, she works at a bar. She has 3 baby daddies. She drinks and smokes. Doesn't fast. Like,
Wow.
how are you a Muslim?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mean to
Alcohol.
talk shit about my family, but that's not very Islamic behavior. And you see that a lot with these pro-Palestinian leftist types. They sit with, Zohran Mamdani at iftar and they break their fast, right? But then they're going online and they're talking shit to people. They're not being peaceful. You see them in the streets, right? The way that they behave. It's just not Islamic, right? So it's kind of all to me like a facade. It's not true. Like I feel like they don't even really believe in it themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of like it's like a trend. It's just something to like you know how they say clout chaser? It's like that. It's like just like trying to get clout. So I don't think it's genuine. I don't with any of these people. Of course, I know that there are some like genuinely good people that are Muslim, right? You know, they actually do try to live in peace and harmony there. And actually it's really funny. In Islam, you're actually supposed to be a Zionist because in Islam, only the country of Israel is mentioned over 37 times in the Quran. And only in the Quran, it mentions the children of Israel multiple times. And, that they are the blessed people. Go ask, there's like a verse where it says basically like, go ask the Jews. So when I see the Muslims, right, like the leftist, liberal, leaning people, where they try to like make fun of the Zionists, or they, for me personally, they call me a dirty Zio, which I think is hilarious. Why are you like, that's not an insult. You're trying to turn something into an insult that's not an insult. Like, wow, you're not a Jew hater.
Right?
Wow, like I don't understand it. So it's all nonsense. It's all
Yeah.
malarkey, basically. That's how I see it anyway. I don't know.
And like, how old were you when you started reading on the history in Iran and started questioning Islam?
So when my parents divorced in 2010, I was, in high school. And at that time where I grew up, it was very much either white or Mexican. There was no other diversity. There's no other races in that area. So I would lie and I would say I was Mexican because nobody knew what Iran was. Nobody knew what an Iranian was. And if I ever did bring up anything like that, they'd say, "Oh, you're a dirty terrorist." So I just would say I was Mexican. Okay. Once I graduated high school and I started, going to college, I got my first job out of college at this like Persian restaurant, and I would see all of these like Zoroastrian symbols and stuff, and I just thought it was so beautiful, and I would just say, "Oh, like what is this? Like I've never really seen this before." And my boss at the time was kind of telling me, "Oh, like this is the Takht Jamshid. This is like the, king. It's like a, the how do I say it? I don't know how to say it in English, but it's like a Favrahar symbol where King Cyrus the Great has like these big, beautiful wings." And yeah, so he was like telling me about the history of that. And then the more I was thinking about it, the more I was just kind of like doing a little research. At that time, Tumblr was really huge. So I would like go on Tumblr. Yeah, like I would go on Tumblr and I would like get like little images and put the images on my Tumblr, and I would, do all the little things. And then I was just more curious because I was thinking like, because this whole time I'm thinking that this Islamic regime, like I didn't know nothing about the Islamic Republic. I didn't know who Khomeini was. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the history of the brutality of what they were doing to my people. Like I didn't know nothing. My brain was just completely empty. So as soon as I started going online more, because social media was not really big back then.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. This is like 2014, 2015. What was it, like Facebook, I think, at that time?
Yeah, we barely even had like good smartphones at all.
Yeah, there wasn't any Instagram or TikTok. There was nothing like that. And yeah, there wasn't really like, I mean, yeah, there were iPhones, but it was just starting to like come into fruition.
Yeah.
So I would say around 2016, I was like, oh, like I'm a Muslim, right? I'm Muslim. Like my family's Muslim. I'm Muslim. And I tried to like dibble dabble into Islam because I thought that was my true religion, right? Even though I was starting to learn a little bit about Zoroastrianism, but I wasn't paying too much attention to it. I wasn't really like that interested in it yet. But around 2019, I actually dated this Palestinian guy. He was 10 years older than me. And I went to his house and he had like his whole family there. And there was on the TV, there was a video of Ayatollah Khomeini, and he was sitting there talking.
Oh no.
And his grandpa was like this to the TV. He's like, "I love you. Mwah. I love you." And I was just kind of looking like,
God.
Again, I had no idea who the Ayatollah was. I didn't know what they were doing to my people. Like I knew nothing. So I thought that was really strange that this old man, this old 90-something-year-old Palestinian man was like behaving this way over. And I was just curious. I was like, why would he do that? Right. Like, I don't know. I didn't really want to get into it with the guy at that time because that just wasn't a topic of conversation. But like I said, this is around 2019. So that's when I started doing more research. And that's when I found out about Yasser Arafat. That's when I found out about Ayatollah Khomeini and how they had the connection of creating the Palestinian identity in 1967, the Palestinian flag. I learned about 1948. I learned about how, the Jewish people, they were in exile for all these years and they were finally able to come back to the land of Israel. I found out all these little pieces, right? Like they were all starting to like come together. And I guess what really had it for me was the fact that I just felt like this was, you know, oh, and then also too, before I forget, 2020 was where I actually started learning about the Islamic Republic. There was a flight from Tehran going to Canada, Toronto, Canada. It was called Flight PS 752. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it was a flight, it was a Ukrainian flight. And as soon as it took off in Tehran, the IRGC, the Islamic Republic, shot a missile, and everybody on the plane unfortunately died as soon as they took off. And guess what they did? They blamed it on the United States. They
course.
said, oh,
Of course.
the United States killed our people. Look at what they've done, right? They later did the investigation. They finally got the black box from the aircraft, and they actually found out, no, it was you guys did it, right? But they were trying, even to this day, they still say it was the United States. So when that happened, I was actually pregnant with my son, and I was in Germany at the time, and me and my dad, we cried when we found out about the flight. And I just could not stop crying because I was just so devastated. Like, how could you do that? How could you kill over 200 people for no reason, and then blame it on the United States?
Yeah.
How barbaric was that? And my dad is extremely political. So he starts going in and explaining everything to me from beginning to end, from 1979, even before 1979, but it was mainly what happened in 1979. And I don't like to call it the Islamic Revolution. I like to call it the Islamic coup, because that's really what it was. It was an overthrow.
Yeah.
It was a takeover.
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
revolution seems like a positive word. So
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It was a coup. It was horrific. And, one of the chants that the people today, they will say in the streets, not necessarily my age, but more of like the older crowd, is that how regretful they are for bringing in these people, how much they regret it, how much they wish that they never were fooled to bring in this entity and to allow them to take the country hostage, because that's
So does-
essentially what it is.
Does it frustrate you when you see like modern day leftists saying hands off Iran, the Iranian people don't deserve the US to colonize, when really the same leftists that, well, leftists in general in Iran that did side with the Ayatollah, they were all brutally murdered. All the feminists, all the girls in Iran, all the students that were with the mullahs, they were all systematically wiped out. And does it kind of bother you? And how do you deal with it when talking to people that don't know that if they were over there trying to support them, they get killed?
It's
'Cause
very
once they- yeah.
frustrating. Yeah, it's very frustrating. And, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because right now there's like a little trend going on in the diaspora where we have a lot of leftists. Yeah, they're leftists. They're leftist Iranian content creators, journalists. They claim to be journalists. And they basically make all of these videos, right? And they're basically saying like, oh, like, how could you guys be dancing in the streets? And like, we know they're Iranian, right? But it's so baffling that they're basically spewing IRGC propaganda, but under the same breath saying, we don't support the Islamic Republic. We're not happy. I mean, we're just not happy that the bombs are happening, right? But that doesn't mean we support Islamic Republic, but in the same breath saying, why are you bombing? Why are you destroying these nuclear facilities? Like, how dare you? This is all illegal. You're not allowed to conduct these operations. This is all, it's illegal. Like, it's not right what you're doing. And, I feel like even though they say that they don't support the Islamic Republic, in a sense they are, because these are Islamic Republic talking points. I mean, how can you sit there and say that you don't want what is your solution? And whenever you ask them what the solution is, they don't have anything to say.
No.
Or they say nonsense like, oh, they need to be held responsible for their crimes. You don't think people have been trying that for 47 years? To hold
The
these
same with the
people-
woke right. Like the woke right are saying, "Oh, it's terrible what's happening to the Iranian people in Iran," but they need to solve it for themselves. I mean, they tried, but they were massacred in January. And these woke right Nazis are doing the same thing as the left people.
It's absolutely
it's ridiculous.
atrocious.
It's like every side is just saying the stupidest thing. They're competing for like
the stupid award.
stupid award. Yeah, I was thinking that is stupid award.
Like Candace Owens and Anna Kasparian, like, oh, they're just doing this to take the land. What? What? I mean, I don't know. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, especially when it comes to Israel, right? Like they say that that's why the Israelis are so invested in regime change because they want to take the land.
Yeah.
First of all, that's not going to fly. Like if you really think that 90 million people are going to say, "Okay, go ahead and, do
Yeah.
your greater expansion project." Like that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. And even right now within the diaspora, we're having a conflict with the Kurds because a lot of the Kurdish people, they're separatists. So what they want to implement is that, okay, we're going to break up the country. We're going to create a Kurdistan. We're going to create a Azerbaijan province. We're going to create a Baluchistan. They want to break it up. But that we don't, not we, but the community as a whole doesn't want to do that, right? So there's a lot of conflict going on right now. The girls are fighting. It's not good. It's not really a good time right now because of the amount of division that we have within the community. On the other hand, when it comes to the leftists and what they're spewing, right? A lot of the people in the diaspora are making a lot of content calling them out. I'm one of them. And that has brought us, I would say, a little more together in that sense. Because we're sick of it, honestly. We're tired of the voice of the left. We're tired of it. We're tired of the hypocrisy. We're tired of them talking about how the US struck a elementary school and killed accidentally 160 schoolgirls. But then they don't want to talk about the IRGC slaughtering over 50,000 people in the span of 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Like, wasn't the school done by the regime as well?
I believe it was. They're still
Yeah.
doing the investigation. There was like a Telegram channel that was found out to be the IRGC's where they actually conducted their own investigation and they said that it was them by mistake. But now if you go to like other news sources, now they're saying like if you go to like CNN and Sky News, they say that the US did it. So
or
nobody's
Israel.
yeah.
Well,
And they were all
also it
involved.
doesn't help any left wing thought to have it at all that the IRGC did it, because then it goes against everything else that has happened, which is 50,000 or however many people were unfortunately killed in January, that the IRGC has just killed everyone because they tried to bury that story in January. A lot of
Mhm.
left wing media didn't want to talk about it. And we talked about it in the previous podcast. I mentioned that the reason why left-wing media and legacy media don't want to talk about the IRGC doing it is because the people pulling the trigger are a central government where everything is centralized, everything is in hands of the state. It's another form of extreme socialism. It's basically communism, but under the guise of religion. And if you criticize that, you're pointing the finger at yourself for what you guys are doing with the European Union, with centralized banks, and you don't want to do that because it's hypocrisy. So they're just trying to not talk about it. But then once Israel gets involved, because they don't like Israel, now we can talk about something about it. Very hypocritical.
It's very selective.
The hatred toward the state of Israel, I will honestly never understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to Israel several times. I've seen with my own eyes the amount of diversity, the way that they treat all people. I don't get it. But on the other hand, I do get it because how else are you going to keep spewing this narrative? How are you going to keep keeping this ideology alive that this is like a apartheid and that they're so evil? This is, they're killing all these Muslims and Christians and they're racist and I don't know. As someone who's been to the country themselves, it's just not true.
Yeah.
How did you react when you were learning about the ancient Persian culture, when you learned about Cyrus the Great, being friends with the Jews and freeing them? And after learning about that, how does it make you think now, considering that people are talking so much bad about Israel helping Iran, but really Israel and Iran have a friendship? I just, as an outsider that's not Iranian, it makes me want to pull my hair out,
Yeah, no, I was actually I think it was like 3 weeks ago, I watched like a little documentary about it. It was like a cartoon. It was like more like a cartoonish kind of documentary, but either way, it was very informative and I actually really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot about the story of how, Esther came to at that time, I believe it wasn't Cyrus the Great, it was Xerxes she married. And how she was able to like try to figure out how she could save her people without also, getting crap from her husband because he was also involved with this man. I don't remember him. I can't remember his name, but he was the one that essentially was like, we need to kill the Jews. We need to kill all of them. We need to exterminate them and we need to rid them because they're going to rise up against you. And she was able to somehow come up with this speech and basically admit to him that she was a Jew. And because of his love for her, he listened to her and he didn't listen to the other guy, right? So on the one hand, it was a really beautiful story, honestly. And I could I don't know, it was truly refreshing to know that there was, because when you grow up in a Muslim environment, right? Especially when the Muslims are not Zionists, that's not the narrative, okay? The Jews are evil. Israel is evil. So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
think about it like that, there is no good stories. It's all bad. It's all negative, right? They kill kids. They spit on Christians. It's all like a negative narrative. There's nothing positive about it. And so, when I heard about the story of Esther, and I was kind of thinking, oh, finally, a positive story, that I can reflect on, and think about. And then, also too, in Israel, a majority of Israelis have Persian ancestry, have Persian DNA. A lot of people don't know that. But a majority of the Jewish people in Israel, that's why they have such a connection. And that's why I feel like even today, we're so comfortable standing alongside them because a huge majority of them are Persians. I believe there was even 4 hostages that were taken October 7th that were Persians, had Persian ancestry. You wouldn't be able to tell right away because obviously they have, more Israeli names and they look more Israeli. But then when you look into their family history, you actually realize they're Persian, like Romi Gonen, right? Her grandmother was Iranian Persian. And so she survived, thankfully. But there is such a beautiful connection that unfortunately I was not exposed to until I left Islam. I had to leave the religion in order to see that, because before, when you're in it, you don't see it that way. You don't see it as a beautiful connection. You see it as more of these people are evil. How dare you even think about even talking about these people?
Yeah,
And
us versus them mentality, right?
yeah, absolutely. There are enemies, basically, right? Which is not true Islam, because in the Quran, it doesn't talk about that, right? Because I actually read the Quran. So I don't know why they, especially that community, they like to pick and choose, and then they like to twist a lot of the facts, even in their own book. A lot of them haven't even read the damn book. How
That's
are you
true.
going to claim you're a Muslim and you didn't even read the book?
Yeah.
Doesn't make
And
any sense.
and the thing is with the Quran, it was a book, it was written with a purpose.
Mhm.
And when you're starting out as the underdog, you're not going to write a book telling, your true feelings. So you have to seem like this just friendly religion, the religion of peace, and let's all get together. We just want our own, little corner of paradise. And once that grows and they get enough of them, they get an army, then they show their true colors. Then they start conquering their way out of Arabia. And but yeah, it operates as a cult, because that's what it is. And then the tricky part, in what you did, basically escaping Islam, is that any cult that lasts for this long, the problem then becomes, because then it's you're not just fighting against common sense. You're fighting against generations of your own family, and it's I'm sure there's a lot of people that question themselves, because there's that, who am I to think I know better than my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, and so on and so on. Like they accepted Islam.
It's
Who
like
am
this
I?
generational
Mm.
curse/trauma thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it becomes that much harder because because then like you're also you're escaping the cult, but if the rest of your family is still in it, and you also have to deal with that, and yeah, so it does take like immense bravery and just self-assurance to realize no, this isn't right, and I need to get the fuck out, and I need to connect with my own roots, the real ones, and yeah, and like we have our usual Indian member. He couldn't make it today, but he did send. Well, first of all, he asked me to convey you his regards, and he wanted to ask you a question. I'm just gonna read it. He wrote, "There are millions like her who want to give up the religion like she did, but are scared because of the pressure from their family or moral police, etc. How can one give it up? What are the steps or issues they will face, and how to tackle them?"
So it depends, right? Like if they're stuck in the country and there's nothing that they like, there's no other options that they really have, majority of the time they have to keep it in secrecy. Because if it was to be exposed, right, if they were to say tell their parents, tell their families, two things can either happen. Either the family will accept it and they'll just keep it secret, or they will kill them in an honor killing. It's pretty straightforward. So majority of the time they have to keep it secret. In my family dynamic, right? Like, so my dad's side of the family, we're of a tribe. It's like a Turkish tribe. It's like called Azeri, like from Azerbaijan. So my great grandfather immigrated from Azerbaijan to Iran in the early 1900s. So, like my dad's side, they all speak Turkish as well. My dad speaks Turkish. Like we're considered to be the Turks of Iran, right? And then so like they're all Zionist. And only on paper are they Muslim, but they don't practice, they don't pray, they don't drink. I mean, they do drink and smoke, but they don't follow all the rules of Islam. It's just literally on paper. And my cousin, so my dad's cousin's daughter, she and her husband, they moved to Turkey. And then from Turkey, they moved to Armenia and they converted to Christianity because they always wanted to be Christian. But in Iran, if you're born as a Muslim and you convert to Christianity, that's a death sentence. Not from your family, but from the government potentially, or persecution, like jail time. So they had to wait. They had to escape. They had to go into Turkey, get refugee status in Turkey, and then they lived in Turkey for a while, and then they moved to Armenia because Armenia is a Christian country. So that's another way that they're able to do it. They go to Turkey, they get asylum, they get their refugee status, and either they stay in Turkey because they have, the right to change their religion, or they move to a different country like Greece, Armenia, Azerbaijan is another country that a lot of people move to. So some of my family members have been able to do that to where but they had to leave. They were not able to stay. Not because of their own families, because of the government, essentially, and the consequences that could have if it were to come out in the public. So a lot of people that, I wouldn't say that they're not smart, but there are some people that went to the government office and said, hey, I want to become a Christian. Can you please change my passport from Muslim to Christian? Because it says it in the passport, right? In the birth certificate. And the police will be called, and from then on, charges will be pressed. And one of the charges is it's called conspiracy against God, right?
Oh my
Blasphemy
God.
against
I
God.
know.
Yes. So the people that will admit it to them, they get persecuted. The Baha'is get persecuted, the Jewish people get persecuted, even the Christians, they get persecuted. So there is no freedom of religion, basically. So either
What
they
if they
have
were
to
born? What if they were born Zoroastrian into a family that still practice, or is that just not a thing
Yes,
anymore?
that's okay. Yeah. If they're born into it, if you're born Christian, if you're born Jewish, if you're born Zoroastrian, then you're fine. It's only for the converts. It's only for the people that were born Muslim originally on paper and they want to change it. those are the people that they target, and those are the people they go after,
How is
unfortunately.
that verified? Is it verified like at birth? He was baby born into Muslim family, birth passport?
So I think there's like an ancestry, like a history of like, you know how like in the United States and other countries they have like ancestry.com, you can put in
Yeah.
your information and then all of
Yeah.
your family tree comes up.
Mhm.
They have that same sort of like system. So I think that's how they do it. They go based off of the last name, because I just found this out recently at about 250, 300 years ago. Everybody picked their own last name. So like my family, right? Our last name is Motadayan. They picked it. It wasn't given to them. Like everybody picked their own last names. So if not all the Iranians, majority of the Iranians, all of the last names they have, they were not like given by some entity. They were all picked out by their ancestors. And they could have just made it up. They could have said, oh, Shepherd. Like our last name is Shepherd, right? So I don't know. I think with that, because of the how do I say it? Like the bookkeeping, like in the government offices, they have all of those files, right? They have all of that like family history. Some of them do, some of them don't. I don't know if that's the case for every family, but for us, we have 8 generations of paperwork of,
Wow.
proof that we were Muslim. Yeah, originally from 8 generations. I don't
So
even
they
know how many
basically
years.
make the family tree for the people, but not as like, oh, here's a token for you to see your ancestry. It's more of we're watching you and we're controlling you.
Yeah, like we're just confirming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. So
Right.
like my family originally they actually were blacksmiths. So from 8 generations ago, they, that's what they did. That was their profession. They were the like family of the blacksmiths. So that's how it was able to get passed down from generation to generation. I mean, I can't speak for every family, but that's just how it was for us. But like my mom's side, they're very religious. They're very, very Muslim. My grandfather on my mother's side actually went to Karbala, which is a city, like a place in Iraq, where Shia Islam is like the forefront. It's very huge over there. And he also went to Najaf, which is where the Ayatollah Khamenei's father was born. So they're very much pro regime, pro Shia Islam, pro that whole
Absurdity.
So in '79,
genre.
on your mom's side and your dad's side, were their family and friends supportive of the mullahs, or were they kind of neutral, or how were they
My
like
mom's
back then?
side was my mom's side. They wanted the Ayatollah. My grandma to this day, she's very pro Shiite. She still wears like a little headscarf and she, fasts, and
That's
she
crazy.
loves Imam Hussein and Fatima Zahra, and she loves all the imams and all that weird stuff. But I mean, when I would talk to her about it, I didn't know anything about it. So I didn't I wouldn't say anything because I didn't know anything. So I was just like taking it all in. But now that I know, it's just kind of like, oh, like that is so odd. Like that is so weird, and I don't really
It seemed like an internalized like misogyny because in general Islam is a religion. I usually say Islam is a cult, but it's a cult that hates women. There's no respect. There's no equality. There's nothing in America or even in the West. People are like, oh, women, equality, blah, blah, blah. But then how can anyone in their right minds even be for the regime, not be completely supportive of anyone who is supporting the what's happening now, right?
brainwashed.
Right?
I mean, just the fact that a woman's statement is half worthy as of a man, the worth is half.
Half.
Yeah.
I also read in the
So-
Quran that if a woman is silent when a man tries to like have sleep with her, even if he forces himself
It's
on her,
consent.
yeah, because the silent means yes, right? That's true in the Quran.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And also a lot of like, especially what's been happening in the last couple months, but they've been doing this for years. Another form of torture they do is that a lot of the girls, like a lot of these girls that they get arrested and stuff, and they want to execute them, if they find out that they're virgins, they will abuse them, they'll sexually abuse them, and then they will be allowed to execute them because you cannot execute a
heaven.
virgin.
Yeah.
So they sexually abuse them
Oh my
beforehand
gosh.
and torture them. Yeah, it's absolutely horrific.
But,
Like,
but that was a quote from the original Ayatollah Khomeini, right? Saying we want the
That is-
virgin protesters to be raped so they can go to hell, right?
exactly. So they can't go to heaven. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's sick. It's absolutely horrifying. And he's also the same person that also said that you can have intercourse with a goat because it's
You
very
can?
you can because it's very similar to a woman.
Oh yeah, he
and
did
that
say
it's
that.
permissible
Speaking
in
from
Islam.
experience.
Yeah, I don't know, but
He also said
apparently
that you
it's
could
okay.
like touch 9-year-old or 3-year-old babies, like as long as you don't like have sex with them, but you could touch them in inappropriate ways because
You
it's
can
the God allows it
molest
to, right?
them. Yeah, you can
If
rub
anybody's
on
supporting
them.
that, are they serious right now?
No,
But the
it's
worst part is
dead
that the
serious.
leftists will say if you tell them that's not true, that you're making it up. The
Oh
Quran
my
doesn't
God,
say that,
this
so like you
seems like
can't
a
argue with
compliment.
these people.
Bet there's a
You should go
compliment.
to the pro-Palestinians. They'll admit it. They'll say, "Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
No,
what?"
but there are
It's
some
their
some
culture. It's
leftist
their
protesters that if you tell
culture.
them these things, they think you're lying.
Yeah, some of them will say that, but the ones I've seen, they admit it. They're like
Oh,
always
really?
kind of like, yeah, because
No
when you
way.
go, because you can't deny it. If you're a Muslim, right, and if you're like you believe this ideology and you have a picture of the Ayatollah, you can't really go against his word, right? It doesn't really make sense.
Oh no, I'm talking about the
Right?
white liberals that support Islam because they don't know
No,
anything
but that's what
about
I'm
it.
saying. Like, you can't really go against what the guy is saying when you're holding up the guy's picture, and then he's asking you, like, "Oh, like, is it true that he said this?" You can't say no because it's true. He did say it.
Yeah.
So they usually most of the time they'll admit it. But I have seen the ones that you're talking about where they
Yeah,
just are
yeah.
like, "Oh, that's just propaganda. That's
It's
just
usually a
Israeli
Karen or a
propaganda."
Karen's
They're
husband.
robots.
Yeah.
These people are robots. They're like, okay, my job is to grab the photo and say yes to the regime, and I will go and
Hands off Iran. Hands off
together.
Iran.
And they're paid too. Majority of them,
Yeah,
they're
they are.
paid to do
Yeah.
it.
It's so dirt. Like,
I get
how
told
can
all the
someone
time.
sell themselves like this?
Yeah,
It's
I always get
communism, though.
comments. I always get comments under my posts like, "Did you get your $7,000 yet?"
Oh my gosh, I got that too. Because I have a psychology channel and I made a video about the cult of Islamism. Because if you put Islam, YouTube will like just destroy your video, destroy your channel. So I put the cult of Islamism, and the people in my comments
Oh, I
were
want to
like,
see that video.
Yeah, me too.
I can send the link after.
Yeah, send it to the link.
You're a Jew. You look like a Jew. Face of a Jew. Did you get your $7,000 in your bank account? All in
I
caps lock and
wish.
stuff.
I
So
need
apparently
to email
Qatar's paying people
Netanyahu.
those 7,000 for the opposite things.
Yeah, I need to email Netanyahu. Like, where's my $7,000, sir?
I
Like,
mean,
everybody in the
like,
comments is saying I'm getting this
even
money, and I have no
got
money.
10 cents for that
like
video.
even that is so absurd because like 7,000 is not that much. Like
Right.
it's
It's
such
really
a
not.
ridiculous amount. Like
Did you know when the October 7th happened, the majority of the pro-Palestinian protesters, they were getting paid $8,000 a day to protest.
In
A
America?
day, yes,
God,
in New York City.
Qatar has so much money. It's insane.
Wait, what?
$8,000 a day. Like, I mean, I don't want to sound like money hungry, but I would do it too for $8,000 a day.
Like 1 or 2 days and then you're done, and like at least you can, buy a car.
Go on vacation, like, and then go do another protest, pay some bills, put a down payment on a car, like.
That's the yearly payment. That's the yearly salary almost of Portugal, like the minimum wage of Portugal.
Mm.
So imagine getting.
I mean, but like
yeah, no,
we're
I
joking,
think it's
but a lot
absurd.
of them do that because like they got paid for all those pro-Palestinian protests, and more recently they also got paid for the Trump for the liberation of
No
Venezuela.
kings.
Yeah,
Oh, that was
What
so
is
stupid in
that?
now
America.
Iran, and they're gonna get paid again.
Because and then they're
It
like,
goes
he's
back
not
to
a
what I was saying
king.
about in the last episode about communism and what I said in the group chat earlier today. People don't want to work. So when they see this brainwashing candy, they're like, oh, wow, I don't have to work. I get to
Mhm.
yell and act like a clown, like I'm in school. yeah, this is sign me up, and it's just this. The people are being taken advantage of because their incentive to work is being removed, so it just destroys society.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
there's also a global like unemployment crisis in a lot of fields, and people are even more compelled to be like, okay, it's money. Like, what am I gonna do? You
Why
know,
not? Yeah.
it's either that or like OnlyFans or whatever. I'll just
I
go.
mean,
Like,
you
Or
can
crime.
kind of, in a way, justify it coming from people like that are, it's still, they still do it because they're dumb. But okay, you're struggling financially. Okay, at least you have that excuse. But then there's no excuse for people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson
Tucker
to do
Carlson,
the
yeah.
same thing.
oh yeah,
They're absolutely being paid by,
Oh,
Qatar.
for sure, 100%. I mean, they're
And
Yeah.
like there's
plus what
they
they
have
earn per
no
video.
justification whatsoever for doing that. And like it's so absurd. Like and the people like saying like, because there's been a few countries that have banned the hijab.
Mhm.
Well, not the hijab. They banned the burqa
Mhm.
in public, and there was a lot of outrage in the West over like, oh, it's their choice and yada yada yada, and like you can't claim that it's a choice when the alternative is to get killed.
Yeah.
That's not how choices work.
Mhm.
Like if you get killed for leaving Islam, if you get killed for not wanting to wear a hijab, like that's not a choice, is it? Like
Mhm.
that's a cult. That's what happens in cults. Like if you leave, you get killed. Like that's
Mhm.
not a religion.
or you get like really bad consequences. Even
Mhm.
you might not get killed in all cults, but you do
You get
get
banished. You get
You put in jail.
everything taken
shunned.
from you. You
Yeah.
forced, for example, in Scientology, I know a lot of ex-Scientologists, especially kids, and that were kids, and they get like their families get forced to cut off the families that are Scientologists still get forced to cut off their children, can't talk ever again, stuff like that.
Sounds like the Amish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very very cult like. Yeah.
These are not religions; these are cults, and we need to call things by their names. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, every religion, every actual religion has good things, has bad things, but cults.
And it's funny that
agree.
they want to leave those 50 odd Muslim countries to come to countries like America, UK, or France, or whatever, and then
I
make
have so much to
everyone,
say about that.
and then everyone has to do what we are doing in our old place, but we don't want to live in our old place because it sucks, but we won't admit it, you know.
So
And if you bring it
I
up,
live
you're
in
racist.
Germany, right? I'm sorry, Ali, didn't mean to cut you off, Alberto. I'm
No,
so
no,
sorry.
keep going.
So I live in Germany, right? And I'm in the south. So it's very conservative here. It's very, very
Bavaria?
strict. Bavaria, yeah. So I go to the immigration office and, the lady's just talking to me in German and I'm telling her like, hey, like I just came here. Like, I have no idea what you're saying. Like, I'm going to need a translator. And she looked at me and she said in English, I don't have to speak English with you. You need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm surprised.
Whereas you go to the United States, you're telling me an illegal that hopped over the border, probably has like 100 criminal charges on his record, comes into the United States. Not only is he able to get welfare benefits, he's able to go into the office, and the lady at the office is giving him a back massage and telling him, "Oh, is there anything I can get for you, sweetheart? Oh, you must have had a hard journey. Can I get you some water, some coffee? Oh my God, let's get him a
Suicidal
translator
empathy.
immediately." That's
that was
the difference.
that was Biden's America.
Yeah.
Even today, it's like that. That's just the United States in general.
Yeah,
I've
even
seen-
before Biden. I mean, I lived in the United States until 2010, and it was the same thing. It was
Yeah.
the same thing.
Not necessarily with illegal, but like even with immigrants in general, like they're very friendly with immigrants in the United States. Like if they call on the phone to a customer service representative, they immediately get a translator. Like there's no question about it. They just do it. But in Germany, it's not like that. You have to assimilate. You have to learn the language. Like they don't even care that you don't understand. Like this is an important process. This is immigration. Like I have to know what they're saying. But they don't care to explain it to me. They don't care to accommodate me because I have to
At all.
assimilate to them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I really like. However, if you go to the north of Germany, it's not like that. It's very
the opposite,
liberal,
right?
very left, and you have, way more opportunities to be an immigrant and not assimilate. Whereas where I'm at in the south, you can't live here. If you don't assimilate, if you don't learn the language, you get deported.
But that's
After
because
90
Bavarians
days,
are
you have
kind
to
of
go
snobby,
back.
right?
Hmm?
Bavarians are kind of snobby, right? That's why.
They're not snobby. They're just rude.
Protective.
They're just very I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know what it is. But they're very, I don't even want to say strict. They're just very like negative.
Mm.
They're very critical. Is that the word? Yeah, they're very critical.
Mhm.
And I don't want to talk shit, because I am living here and I don't want to get a knock on my door saying, "Hey, get the fuck out." But I just feel like compared to the United States, like people don't understand how good they have it in the United States. Like they don't realize how easy it is to
Yeah.
live in the United States. Like you don't have to really assimilate, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not forced to like have. What happened? Oh,
Yeah,
we're back.
you froze for a second there.
Sorry.
She's right though.
But
I live in a city in America where half the city doesn't speak English. They all speak Spanish. I live in Miami, and here everyone speaks Spanish. And there are some places you'll
yeah.
go to restaurant, and they'll talk to you in Spanish. They won't talk to you in English. Gas stations, restaurants,
well, that
movies.
depends too. That depends on like the state you're in, the neighborhood you're in. Like that's not such a big deal because they all do know English. They're
No,
just
no, but
probably
no. There
comfortable.
are some people that don't know it here. It's a few,
Oh,
a
yeah.
few that don't know it here. But it's crazy that the first language in the city is Spanish, not English.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Uh,
mean, like if you're like in parts of Florida, if you're in like some parts of New York, like that's very normal. Like it's not
Yeah.
really like a and it is in a sense, it is kind of part of like the fabric of their society. It's not really like what they're doing in the UK where they're just not
Yeah.
assimilating. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I feel like it's a
Oh
little
no,
different. Like I
I
get
didn't
what
mean
you're
it that way.
saying.
I just meant like in an immigrant friendly way.
Yeah.
That you were right. But no, not like the UK at all. No, that's the opposite. That's very
No,
negative.
yeah.
No, it is complete I call it Londonistan. That's what I call
Yeah.
it.
Like
Because
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I think the biggest difference between because I lived for a while in America in Newark, New Jersey, so it's
Mm.
very immigrant heavy and from all parts of the world, really, South America, Europe, a lot of everywhere. But even so, I see the difference between. And then I went to another smaller town, which was more more American, but like also had a lot of mostly Polish and German, I think. Yeah. So what I meant to say with this is you do feel like you're in different neighborhoods. You're like in different like countries, like you're in little Mexico,
Italy or
little
little
Italy,
Japan or
little that.
yeah.
But they acknowledge that they are in America.
Mhm.
They acknowledge that this is our little place where we're celebrating our ancestry or our culture, but like we're in America, we know that. Like
Mhm.
they're not going to go and burn down the American flag. Most people have an American flag, at least where I live. Most people had an American flag in their houses, and a lot of people they would put the American flag and they would put like a lower, a little bit or smaller flag of the country they were from. That's
Yeah.
fine. The problem I see with now that I'm in Europe, is that, for example, with the migrants coming in, they're not here assimilating at all, and they're not here like, oh, we're from Bangladesh, but we're I don't know, like we're from Bangladesh, we're here in Portugal, and we are assimilating, but like this is just our little corner, but like we're
Yeah.
assimilating. No, it's like we're here, and like basically this is ours, and
Mhm.
like you owe us respect, and like what the hell are you doing here? The way they look at
Mhm.
natives and stuff, they're just like,
No, and the crimes that they're committing are so awful.
it's
Mhm.
like what,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
stay in your lane. Don't look at the natives of a country like they shouldn't be there. No, be grateful.
Well,
And
that's
that's
also something that they teach in Islam. Is that to conquer. So that's
yeah,
it's part of
yeah.
their MO since 600 AD.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, all of those lands used to be Christian. The only Christian church that survived ancient times is the Church of Rome. The Church of Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria, and Constantinople were all destroyed.
Speaking of Constantinople, I just watched a documentary on Netflix. It was about King Mehmed II, and this was around like the 1500s,
Yeah,
early
yes, he's right.
1500s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that was actually really interesting because he was the one that conquered Constantinople. But it was like really interesting because, like, yes, they were Muslims, but even they were not so extremist Muslim as the Muslims are today, right? They were able to take over that entire area, which is now known as Istanbul. It's not even Constantinople; it's
yeah,
Istanbul still after 600-700 years. So it just goes to show that like they've always had this kind of like ideology that they want to take as much as they can and Islamify it.
Yeah.
yeah. It's in
Plain
their
and
book.
simple.
I mean, because people like speaking of Constantinople, like people often mention like the Hagia Sophia as this example of
Yeah.
Islamic beauty and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, because it was a church, it was a cathedral.
The
Yes,
Greeks are so sad about it to this day.
Yeah, yeah.
let's
Like
go to
As they
Cyprus. It's the
should.
there
same
was
over there
nothing
too.
Islamic about it.
The Greeks
And
literally like they'll go
yeah.
visit Turkey and they're just like,
We'll cry.
this
Yeah,
used to be ours. Like, oh, it's so sad. Like,
and like
it's
and that's what they
bittersweet.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's what they've always done. And like the
Appropriation.
fact that because like the one thing that stopped them after they conquered Constantinople at the time, the one thing that stopped them from going through the rest of Europe was a man called Vlad the Third, otherwise
Vlad Dracula?
known
yeah. Dracula.
exactly.
Oh my god.
That was it.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw
and
that part of it.
they got so scared of him that for 200 years they didn't try to invade Europe again.
Mm.
And like, if it hadn't been like the reality is, if it hadn't been for Dracula, most of us now in Europe wouldn't be alive because we
He
wouldn't
was
have been born.
barbaric though. When I like saw the documentary,
Yeah.
like they
But you
Yeah, but
villainized the
he gets
hell
a
out of
he
him.
gets a bad rap historically. But the Muslims
Yeah.
did way worse things than him. But because he fought them, left wing educational systems
Yeah.
paint him to be this tyrant because it's not convenient to their narrative or rhetorics.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause,
if you
like-
see the Netflix documentary, it'll
No,
make
like
you
you
be
can't
like,
trust because according to Netflix, Cleopatra was black. So
yes,
so,
yes, I saw
A
that
lot of
too.
people, think
I
that,
saw
that Dracula
too.
was a Christian hero for many
I
people.
saw that
Yeah.
too.
He
Yeah.
defended Romania from the Turks.
Yeah, I saw that too.
He
And
was
it's
kind of
actually really
brutal about
interesting
it, but
because
it's also a war.
yeah, it was no. What was really interesting to me is that they actually grew up together as boys, as brothers.
yeah,
Mehmet
they were
II
hostage.
and
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Yeah,
because Dracula was
as a
kidnapped by the
hostage.
Turks.
Yeah, his
And,
well,
and so like everything he did, like he learned from the Turks,
yeah,
and then he just started using their tactics against them.
yeah,
And
Which is
and
genius
like,
as hell.
but that's also like a clear example of like the use of propaganda because Dracula means son of the dragon because his father was known as Dracul. His father was known as the
Mhm.
dragon. And in recent times, that has been changed to, oh, it meant the devil. And so Dracula was the son of the devil. But that's complete nonsense. Like, he was known as the dragon because he was a member, so Vlad II, he was a member of the Order of the Dragon. And it was this Christian military order that was created to defend Christians, against the Muslims. That's it. But then you can't have, it's the famous comment we see on social media all the time now. Without lies, Islam dies.
Mhm.
And that's it. Like, they need to discredit everyone that ever stood against them So in the case of Dracula, he was this, evil demon. Like,
Yeah.
no, like he understood, like he was a man of his time. He understood what was necessary to fight against the Muslims. And it worked because they were so scared that for 200 years, they didn't try to invade Europe again. And then they did again, and there was the siege of Vienna, and they were defeated. And but like, that's the thing. Like wherever they go, they change history. They they rewrite history completely, so that like in the case of Iran, like most people, like they have no idea about their rich history, about the
Mhm.
empire and like the actual roots, because and the same thing is going to happen to the West. Like if they win, future generations, until humanity gets destroyed, because that's what's going to happen if Islam ultimately wins. But for a generation or two before that happens, they're going to believe that everything in the West is due to Islam.
Mhm.
Everything was invented by them.
Yep.
Well, Persians invented many things, but then all the books, the libraries were burned, and all the inventions were claimed by the Muslim invaders. We invented poetry, algebra. We
Math.
invented this.
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
invented that.
Yeah. And they were all originally Persian scholars, and they turned it into Muslim scholars.
Yeah.
It's very typical of them. It's a tactic I see all the time, right? Or how they tried to claim that the land was always Palestine, right? And then I have to
Yeah.
explain, no, the Romans named it Palestine as an insult to the Jews. That was always Judea and Samaria, blah, blah, blah. No, it was Palestine. No, it was a British mandate. Before the British mandate, it was the Ottoman Empire. Before that, it was, da, 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 da. It was never a sovereign state. It was never a sovereign nation in history. Never, even today. It's
So,
not.
so the reason why you have so many idiots like that you unfortunately have to deal with is because since 1918, there's another revolution that's been going on, and that was the continuation of the Bolshevik Revolution. So communism never died with the fall of the USSR; it just evolved, and it's been
Mhm.
attacking educational institutions, books, libraries, media, because how does communism survive? It's the same as Islam. You have to erase education and you have to change education, you have to change language. The word unalive, I never
Revisionism.
used it as a kid, but now you can't use murder anymore. So they
Mhm.
change the way you talk, so you change the way you think, so you can't think anything against them. And unfortunately, Islam and communism are kind of colliding at the same time and forming like some kind of super virus. And you see it in Europe, you see it in America, and it's quite scary actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see it
And
everywhere.
like because that's the thing, because even in the West, like again, the Netflix nonsense
Mm.
of doing a documentary about Cleopatra and portraying her as black. Like I
Mhm.
remember seeing the trailer, and there was like this black grandmother that I have no idea to this day who the fuck she was, and she was saying in the trailer that her grandmother told her, "Oh, I don't care what anyone else tells you. Cleopatra was black." Like what the actual fuck? Like because because there's no critical thinking, there's no regard for history, and like their thought process is, well, Egypt is in Africa, therefore Cleopatra was black, even though she was Greek, because the entire that line,
Ugh.
that dynasty that ruled
It's
Egypt
exhausting.
were all
Oh my
Greeks. They
gosh.
didn't mix with the Egyptians, which weren't black to begin with.
They were Christian
Were
and they
like,
were all then
yeah,
killed.
They were
yeah,
colonized too. The Moroccans,
yeah.
the Tunisians, the Algerians.
The
They
Coptic
But
were not
Christians.
you can't
Arab
say that.
Muslims.
No, no, no. The only people that colonize are the white Western bad
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Only us
And
whites
it's always done that
we
way where it's like
guilty.
they change history that way. They're never gonna do a Netflix where they're gonna do a documentary of Beyonce and have Giselle Bundchen play Beyonce. Like it's always done the opposite, you know?
I imagine
Isn't that
that
Ellen
for a second.
DeGeneres' wife?
The Brazilian supermodel? No, it was Tom
Oh,
Brady's
she
ex.
wish.
Oh, never mind, never mind, never mind.
Yeah,
She
he was.
wishes.
I know.
Ellen
I'm
DeGeneres
imagining
wishes she was
that.
married to Giselle
Stop.
Bündchen.
That was a good comparison, actually, because
They do look very much alike. Because that's what I thought anyway. Oh my god.
But
No,
yeah,
it really is a joke.
They're
Yeah.
also doing right. I think we mentioned it in the group as well, in the SCO group. Another racial swap they're doing that's like,
I mean, there's so many, like, and
yeah, there was like a new cast that was crazy as well.
and like that one with Cleopatra was especially, offensive.
Horrific.
Because it was a documentary, so it's even worse. Because when they do like
Yeah.
a fiction series, they can like, well, it's just fiction. It's not like, but
Yeah,
when
it's
you
like
do a
Snow White or whatever.
documentary, yeah, and like it's ridiculous, and a lot of it comes from the mindset that's been going on for decades in theater. Because in theater they have this thing that they called blind casting. Like anyone can play anyone, which I always thought was quite idiotic. Because, well, like
It's
I
not very
remember,
genuine, yeah.
yeah, because like sure I don't know, maybe like because it's theater, so you're less immersed in a way, as if you were just watching something on the TV. It's like, but still, like I remember I was living in London at the time, and I remember like going to a couple of plays. I think it was in the same week or thereabouts. One was there's a play called Rosencrantz and Guildenstein or Guildenstein. They Are Dead, and it's inspired by Hamlet. So it's a contemporary play, but the two main characters are these very secondary characters in the original Hamlet. So this play is occurring at the same time as the Hamlet plot is happening. And I remember everyone was white except the guy playing the King of Denmark. And I'm like, really? Was this really necessary? Because, like,
Inclusivity.
They did the same thing for like Sweden. Like 2-3 years ago, there was a documentary. I think it was actually pushed by Swedish public television. So it was like a state-sponsored television in Sweden about the original Swedes that were like the Nordic Viking settlers that founded Sweden, and they were all black. Everyone was black in the documentary, and this was Swedish state-sponsored TV to make the black people that had migrated to Sweden that got free shit from the government to make them feel at home.
Yeah, and they're doing that a lot with like the UK, where now you have like the history that's being taught in schools, for example, regarding the Vikings, now claims that Vikings were Muslims, and I'm a pagan, so I didn't even like look too much into it because like it was just gonna piss me off. But I guarantee that the thought process that they use to even remotely justify that was to probably claim that, we found Muslim coins
Yes, I
in
saw that.
Vikings' graves. And like, I
saw that.
guarantee that's what they use. And it's like, yeah, because Vikings were all over the world. They traded with them. So that's why the currency was there. And they're trying to do the same thing
So
with
infuriating.
Anglo-Saxons, like they were all diverse, like, and it's so, because like it gets to a point where it's so ridiculous. Like
They said that St. George, the guy that founded the St. George's Cross, the flag of England, was a Turk. But no, that was part of the Roman Empire. Like he was not a Turk, and they're trying to lie their way through everything.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because now like they think, Turkey now is this and this. So
Turkey founded England, yeah.
Yeah, at the time, no. Like Turkey, where it's now Turkey, was Greek. It wasn't even Greek. They considered themselves Romans because it was the half of the Roman Empire that survived for centuries. But that's their thought process. Oh, he was from what's now Turkey. Turkey is this, therefore he was also this, and like it's ridiculous.
It's this
And
kind of thinking.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Isn't it
Guys.
exhausting? Like you're constantly like thinking, okay, like am I crazy? I'm not
No,
crazy.
they're crazy. Listen, guys, I have something funny to show you. I
Mm.
want to introduce you Athena and Helen of Troy in an upcoming movie.
No.
Yes.
No,
So
please
here's
no.
Athena and here's Helen of Troy.
Jesus. But you know what I like though is that in lots of places of the US, these types of films are bombing.
yes,
Yeah.
That is true. That is really true. Because it's like especially when you love those kind of films, like Gladiator, for example. Like Gladiator was such a beautiful film, right? Like it's remembered throughout the Last Samurai, right? Like one of the most beautiful films, in my opinion, in film
Absolutely.
history. It was extremely authentic. Okay. And then you have films like that, right? Or you have like The Little Mermaid, where they make the Little Mermaid a black girl.
Oh my gosh, don't
They
even get
bomb.
me started.
Because
girl.
it's not authentic, because we grew up with the Ariel that was, I'm sorry, white.
And it
with
doesn't
red
make
hair.
sense because if you lived under you and your family and all your ancestors were under the sea your whole life, your skin would have no pigment. It'd be white as hell.
That's true.
So like, it made no sense them doing that. But like, at least the minimal thing would be like, give her
Inclusivity.
They could have given her at least the bright red hair, the classic.
No.
No.
and like they can't just help themselves. Like for example, and even when, because they did the original Vikings show, right?
Mhm.
And then Netflix did like a sequel series set like 100 years later.
The Valhalla? Are you talking about
Valhalla.
Yeah,
Valhalla?
Valhalla. Yeah.
Valhalla. Oh, that was actually really good. I'm sorry. I don't know if you liked it, but it was really, really
Oh,
good.
I didn't even bother because I saw the casting.
Why?
No, because they had a Viking Jarl in Sweden played by a black woman.
No, not in
And-
Valhalla.
Yes, they did.
They
Wait,
did.
Let me try to find it.
Yeah, please, because I don't
Um,
remember. I could be wrong.
I was gonna watch the second episode. Thank God I didn't watch it now.
No, because like it was a real historical figure
Mhm.
of obviously a man, because in order, like, basically a Jarl means it's kind of like, it's not really a king, it'd be
Like a dude, right?
yeah, it's a duke, like it's just the tier below.
Oh, and they
below
made him black.
And
A black woman.
yeah,
Did they make it a gay black woman?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I think I remember.
Did they make
now.
her a lesbian too?
I
'Cause
don't
that's a
think so, no.
trifecta. You change their sexual orientation, and then like boom, that's like a woke cheesecake. That's dessert for them.
She was trans.
Yeah.
She was trans.
I mean, they did like, I think it was Amazon. They did like a movie where they had the King of England black and disabled, so
Oh,
using
wow.
a wheelchair.
Oh wait, wasn't
Oh.
that the TV show? The one. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I remember seeing the image and everything. I'm sure you can find it. I saw this. A friend sent me this meme the other day, and this is true. It says,
There you go.
Netflix waiting for the conflict to end so they can make a movie about a black Iranian guy who falls in love with a transgender Israeli soldier.
I saw that. I did see
No,
that. Yes,
no,
yes.
that's brain cancer.
I saw that. Yes, I remember her. Yes.
Oh
I
my
remember.
God, that's awful, Jen.
I remember her.
Jen, there's no way that meme is real. Did you make that up?
No.
The
It's
meme
I
is
seen it
real.
to myself. I seen it on my
Really?
algorithm. On my
Oh my
For You
God,
page.
thank God I don't get that algorithm.
The meme. I mean, I love memes, so
Me too.
No, I know. It's just too much.
But like, look at this, just insanity.
Yeah, watch like 10 years from now. Historically,
Right.
Iranians were always gay and they were always brown and they
were
always
gay, but
said
they
free
weren't allowed
Palestine.
to practice
The-
their
the
gay
They did that with the
because of
movie
regime.
300 too. If you guys remember, they made the Persian King Xerxes a bald, big, giant gay guy.
You know, I
Yeah.
refused to watch that movie because as a kid, I had a copy of the DVD of the original 300 movie from like the 70s. and I read about the history as a kid. I was a super history nerd, and when I saw that, I'm like, I refuse to watch this Sparta bullshit.
But like, like this kind of thinking, saying like, oh, the Vikings travel extensively. Yes, they did, but that doesn't mean that their leaders weren't Vikings or weren't Norse, because Vikings is not an ethnicity. It was a.
But I
profession.
remember that, Nick. I remember her now. I remember. Oh God.
And like it's insane. But again, it's that kind of thought process of like, oh, Egypt is in Africa, therefore Cleopatra was black. But it's the
So
same
originally,
thing.
the
Vikings
way
went
people used to
to
do
Africa.
that, where they would change history, is during a revolution. So like they did it in Russia and they did it in China. So when Mao Zedong took over, he burned a lot of like relics from the ancient Chinese emperors, and then you try to create a new government where the only history begins when your people took power. And this
Yeah.
wokeism, they're trying to do the same thing, but for cultural appropriation, to kind of cement themselves as always being in charge and always being the voice of education and always being the voice of thought. So like it's a copy of the Soviet Marxism and what they did in China. And the Muslims do the same thing too.
Yeah, because like they've all learned from one another. Like they've been
Exactly.
doing this,
Yeah.
since the Muslims
Absolutely.
started, and
Absolutely.
it's
But God,
pure insanity.
God
And
forbid
then
you say that. No, the Muslims don't do anything wrong.
Did
They
you guys
never
see what happened
did.
in New York last
No.
week, where the guy, it was like the perfect picture. There was a guy who was this white liberal guy saying, "America is for everyone. America's free," at a protest, and then a guy has a bomb right behind him, jumps behind him, and is going to throw the bomb at
Oh
an
my God.
anti-Muslim protest. And the cops were heroic, and they stopped him.
Oh my
And
God,
then
really?
CNN tweeted, "Muslim ISIS terrorist was going to throw a bomb."
They were like
And
teenagers.
CNN had to delete it. CNN deleted the tweet, and then they just wrote, "Terrorist plot foiled outside of Mondami's house," rather
Mhm.
than
then you
say
had
what actually
Wow.
then
happened.
you had the Muslim mayor blaming white supremacy.
Yeah, when the guy that did it was a Muslim.
Just the
Oh,
fact that
if they
these
didn't
are
have their anti-Muslim rally, the terrorists wouldn't have thrown the bomb. What?
like, what the hell? Like, actually, whites are the minority in the world. Just saying.
Now they are, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
like
they're even
everybody's
saying
like,
by
like
Sorry.
they better cast Giselle as Beyonce.
I would love that. I'd watch that movie.
They'd better.
Ela é muito linda, né? Eu
Russell-
adoro ela.
No, it's just insane because, like, just us having this conversation for a lot of like leftists, and Jasmine, you were saying that you used to be a leftist. I used to be a leftist too. So yeah, but just having like them listening to this conversation, they would call us like white supremacists, transphobic, homophobic, racists, and that's really not the case. I don't mind, and I don't, and it's indifferent to me. Like, I don't look at things and just attribute a race to them. I watch a movie. I don't care if the main character is black, white, Hispanic, whatever. I don't care as long as the story is good. Now the problem is like when there's like this blackwashing of characters, just like when there was whitewashing of characters, it's not good. It's also not good to do the opposite. It's not like doubling down by going the complete opposite way. It's like, what's that? It just doesn't make sense to me because I'm not all in for, I can't even think of like I can't even think of a white American actress that like we can't have like Kristen Stewart playing Rosa Parks. We're not gonna have that, and I wouldn't.
I want to watch a movie where they have Matthew McConaughey play Martin Luther King Jr. That would be a great film.
I heard it's Ryan Gosling playing Martin Luther King Jr.
I would watch it because I would just. I just watched to laugh.
uproar, the amount of outrage that would go.
Right, but like, why is there no outrage when it's a Helen of Troy? Like, why the hell does it have to be Lupita? I don't know how to say her last name.
Or a black Little Mermaid.
It just doesn't make sense. It's like you're not gonna do.
I mean, because their
a live action did Princess and
justification,
the Frog and put a white
yeah,
actress. So why would you do that
like
with
their justification when it comes to the new Odyssey movie and the Little Mermaid as well. Well, it's fantasy, it's myth. It's like, no, like, sure, it's based on the Odyssey, and a lot of it's myth, but most of it, like Troy, was a real place,
Mhm.
right?
and like it's so absurd, and like even like for example, I don't know if you guys watched A
Oh,
Night
you
of
put the
the
birth
Seven
rates, and I was
Kingdoms.
about to talk about that. Great, great. Love that
Yeah,
you put that
but
there.
before we get into that, like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is this series that came out recently, only 6 episodes, and it's part of the Game of Thrones universe. And the first season, like the casting was impeccable. Like you had two black character. Well, you kind of like you had like two main like female black characters, but it made sense because they were playing characters that weren't, because in the world of Game of Thrones you have the main continent that's basically, it's England, it's Britain, because the whole thing was kind of ripped off the War of the Roses,
Mhm.
or inspired by the War of the Roses. And then you had other continents that are supposed to represent, Africa and like Northern Africa, Middle East. So those two characters come from those continents. So it makes perfect sense. But for season 2, oh yeah, and like everyone else in the show is white, except like there's one shot of like the crowd um attending, like it's the whole thing is around a jousting tournament, and there's one shot at one point of the crowd, and everyone is white except for one black dude. They're just there, like he has no lines. It's just that scene. He's just standing there, and but then for season 2, they couldn't help themselves. I think it was probably like some studio exec that uh, just had, like, they couldn't help themselves, and they one of the lords, so the knights, is going to be portrayed by a black actor. But the funny thing about that, and I don't know if they did it on purpose, like if the showrunners did it on purpose, like fine, if you have to add diversity, we're just going to do it. We're just going to take the piss, because
Hmm.
basically it's a character that in the books, in that the show is inspired on. It's like these little novellas that he the guy wrote on top of Game of Thrones. Um, he's described as uh, being very dirty. So this character has brown skin because he doesn't wash himself. He's white, but he's described as having brown skin, and yeah, because he's very dirty. Doesn't brush his teeth. He's just a disgusting man. And basically, they took the guy that has brown skin from being dirty, and they cast a black actor to play that, which is just hilarious. And but yeah, it's just
Oh my god.
it's complete absurdity. And but yeah, and like this news article here, like anyone that defends the fact that Britain, or in most European countries, are gonna be the same, like it's insane, because you can't, like, the same people that say, oh, this is fine, they wouldn't say the same thing if suddenly this was happening in any African country, any Asian country. But because it's Europe,
I love
because
I
it's
love
the
how
West.
nobody talks anything about the People's Republic of China. Recently, they decreed that Islam is a mental illness in China. Xi
Yes.
Jinping did
Oh,
that in
yeah.
2022.
yeah.
They started burning down,
Yeah.
breaking down mosques. They converted mosques into like nightclubs for like married couples and boyfriend and
Toilets,
girlfriend. Yeah,
restrooms.
yeah. And people eat pork and they drink alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
recently, I saw an article today. I put it on my Instagram, on my story, that Muslims are sent to re-education camps in China where they're forced to drink alcohol and eat pork.
Oh my
That's
But
God.
like,
it's okay
yeah, the
because Chinese
Uyghurs.
communist China dictatorship does it. But if it were to happen in America, they'd burn down the White House.
I
They'd be
don't see any
crying on
protests
TikTok.
about that, about the
There are none.
Uyghurs.
Even in the Muslim community, in the woke left Muslim community, like Uyghur or that other guy named Daniel, forget his name, the guy that debates Christians, they don't talk about how the Muslims are persecuted in China,
No,
No.
not at all.
just like Iran. The woke left
Not at all.
Karen brigade don't talk about how the IRGC kills, rapes, and beats people to death because it doesn't fit their rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder because, like, you'd think these people would be more conflicted about not supporting the Iranians fighting against the regime. And I do wonder if Iranians were more, darker skinned,
Mhm.
maybe then these liberals would have a harder time.
Not even because there have been over 70,000 Christians killed in Sudan and Nigeria, and they don't give a crap.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
yeah,
I don't
that's
think it has
true.
anything to
Yeah,
do with skin. I think it has
yeah.
everything to do with the ideology. I think it has everything to do
It,
with
it,
the
it depends
rhetoric.
who's pulling the trigger. So if it's a Muslim pulling the trigger, they don't care. If
No,
it's a Jew pulling the trigger, they
no.
care.
Yeah, but look what they're doing with the whole thing with Gaza. Okay, that's a perfect example, right? They've been saying for 2-3 years that these people are starving. They don't have food. They're in famine. They're in poverty, right? And then you go
Yeah.
onto their social media pages, and it's actually the opposite. You see the people of Gaza; they're extremely overweight. The
Yeah.
more you see more of them, the more fat that they're getting. Their children are fat. They're fat. They
It's
have
impossible to
nothing.
be fat if you're starving,
No, but that's the narrative, though. That's the
right?
narrative
I
is
mean,
that
Exactly.
they
Israel's
even
starving them, but
post.
they're not starving. They're
Yeah,
actually
and like,
very well fed.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like, have you seen? Because like
You're right.
they're so stupid. Like they even post behind the Palestinians. They
Hmm.
post behind the scenes videos
Hmm.
of them filming those videos of crying for help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
saw
can
a
see
TikTok
it's
of a
all
woman
staged.
saying your kids have to go to school.
Yeah,
They didn't
there was
finish
a
their
video
homework.
of in I think it was Sudan. There was a line of children. They were waiting to get food. There was like a big pot of like rice or something. I don't know. And there was a woman basically giving it to every child. And the way that these children were so cute and behaved, and they were just standing there waiting with their little plate, get the food on the plate, and then they go. And then you see the kids in Gaza, and they have these like bowls, and they're like, "Ah, give me the food!" Ah, like screaming, hollering like a bunch of banshees. And then you think like it's all performative. It's not even real.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then you see, oh my God, there's just so much. And that's another reason why I'm so like, I've changed my
Yeah.
stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict because it's all fake. It's another
Mm.
Black Lives Matter. It's another
Yeah.
scam.
But
And
it's
they've
always
gotten
been that
nothing
way.
but support and money from the community, right? Whereas Iranians, they're called the Zionist foot soldiers. They don't get no money.
Ugh.
They don't get no support. They don't get no media time. But yet the people in Gaza, people cry for them and they feel so sorry for them. I mean, the amount of white American Muslim converts that I see that they
Oh, it's so
praise
sad.
Hamas, they praise Hezbollah, they praise the Houthis. There's a creator who
Yeah.
actually made a video about me. I don't know
Really?
why, but she made a video about me, and she posted a video like 2 days ago, basically like saying how like the definition of Hezbollah is like something like regarding the angels, like they're like somehow connected to
What?
like angels. Yeah, they're like
Oh
they're
yeah,
like
angels that
God's divine. Oh my God, like
angels
just
that penetrate a sheep.
absolutely deranged, and I just couldn't think to help and think of myself like what is this? Like, how could you post a video like that? And then the more you go into her social media, like she has videos listening to speeches of Hitler in English. So
What?
obviously this is an extremely deranged individual. But this is
No.
what we're dealing with. Yeah, like this is
Was she
the kind of
American or
stuff
was she
we're
was she
dealing
was
with
she
to where now
Iranian?
we
Was
have
she was
content
she
creators that are openly praising Hitler, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
they're
it's so confusing because it's on the left and then it's on like the woke right, and it's so confusing because it's like, what?
I'm literally like Donald Trump. Like I'm literally right at where the level that he's at. Like I'm not far right or far left. Like I'm like right in the, like not even in the middle because I am on the right. But it's not. I don't agree with Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens
I
and
can't stand
Megan
that guy.
Kelly,
But
and
but they're insane. Like
they're
just
insane. Absolutely insane
I
because they're
mean,
Jew because they hate Jews, and I like this is the
Yeah.
thing for me. How and why can you hate a race of people that did absolutely nothing to you? You blame
exactly,
all the problems of the world on
because they
this
get
group of
paid for
people.
it.
Not only do they
Yeah.
get paid for it, but I think they truly believe it. They truly
Oh,
believe that they're
They do.
like
They do.
I don't know if you guys know who
yeah,
Huda Beauty is, but she's like a beauty
yes,
She's
blog. She
Iraqi.
has like
Yeah,
a
she's the
beauty
beauty
brand,
Yes.
right?
content creator, right?
And
yeah.
She's a
she
part of the
Canceled
IRGC.
now.
now
Yeah.
she's canceled, but there was a point, like I think it was like 6 months ago, she did a video and she basically said that Israelis and Jews are the reason why World War I, World War II, 9/11, October 7th, every single war and famine that you could think of in the world is because of Israel and the Jews.
What
And
the?
so she didn't get canceled for that, right? And then finally, she posted a video of a bunch of pro Ayatollah people in Iran burning the picture of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and the crown prince. They were like burning their
Mhm.
pictures. And so the entire Iranian diaspora community went for her neck, and they're still coming for her neck.
Yeah, they are.
Threw
Good.
away her makeup, returning her makeup, like we're not buying your makeup anymore, like screw you, like we're done with you, total like boycott. But that's what I mean. Like it's so normal now to just like hate Jews and hate Israel, and like they don't even care about the consequences because I think they truly believe it. I
Yeah.
think they truly believe in it.
They do.
That's
Yeah.
why.
'Cause I think for the
Yeah.
people that aren't even like financially, motivated, like the Candace Owens of the world, like the people that are just spewing hatred, on social media, like it's the perfect excuse for their inaction because they can blame everything on Israel, and they make Israel this, almost godlike entity that, well, I'd like to do something, but it's pointless because the Jews run everything. So it is what it is. And like, so
Yeah.
it's a built-in excuse for their cowardice, for their inaction. That's why, like, even the ones that are against the Muslims, they still blame Israel for it. Because, like, if you just blame the Muslims, then it's like, okay, then let's
You're
do something about
Islamophobic.
it. Yeah, and but let's do something about it. But if you blame Israel, then suddenly, like, oh, you can't because they're too, they're everywhere. Like,
They're
you
going to
just
delete
can't,
your social media. Be careful.
So
What upsets me the most is just the lack of understanding of history and what happened in like
I
the
just feel
last
like if
century.
Jews really controlled the world, okay,
There were
hypothetically,
50,000. There were
why would October
50,000.
7th
Sorry,
happen?
500,000
Why would
Christian
all of these
Palestinians.
anti-Semitic attacks
yeah,
happen to the people that control the world? It
Yeah.
does, like the math equation is not equating. It doesn't make any
No.
sense
But
at all.
guys, there were
That's why I don't believe
500,000
in it,
Palestinians that
especially
were
when people try to
Christians
tell me that. Oh,
last century in Palestine.
like in Germany, majority of the buildings here in Germany are owned by Jews. My dad was telling me, and I looked at him and I'm like, huh, why do you think that is, Dad? Is it because they control the world, or is it because of what they did to them during the Holocaust? And he was just like, oh no, they don't control the world. I'm sorry, just because they own a couple of buildings. Like I don't believe that. I don't believe they control the banks.
Yeah.
I don't believe they control the black market. I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
all like a derangement syndrome, like IDS syndrome, Israel
And
derangement syndrome.
yeah, and I think I think one of the reasons that people really, and I think I mentioned this in past videos of our calls, is that people in general, leftists hate meritocracy, and a lot of Jewish people, because of what they went through, really, especially with the Holocaust, they had to flee their countries to protect their families. A lot of them saw their own family members die. If you experience that, you want to make sure that your the people in your descendants don't go through the same thing, that they have, that you leave some kind of wealth.
Mhm.
So I believe that they worked really hard to be able to build their own brands, their own companies, their own empires. A lot of them in America that moved to America and eventually really put their heads down and really worked hard, and and a lot of them ended up having, developing these like really wealthy families because of their hard work, you know, and out of their own merit, because back then meritocracy was more of a thing, and leftists hate meritocracy. They hate meritocracy, and so and a
Yep.
lot of Jewish people are the representation of that, of work hard to get what you want, you know.
That's
And
why
I
they hate
think,
capitalism. Yeah.
yeah, but they hate that too. They hate, it's such a contradiction, because like they hate when you achieve something because of merit, but they, like the Ronaldo Messi example we had last call as well. Like they hate a person when they work for something and they achieve it, because then it's like it's a reflection on, it's like a mirror to them, because it's like, oh, so I'm not achieving things because I'm not working hard enough. Oh, no, that can't be. I don't want to
Yeah.
accept that. No.
Because
Mhm.
It's the Jews.
because
It's
the
the Jews.
They
Ronaldo
don't want to
Messi
accept their own
example,
failures and their own shortcomings. I couldn't
Absolutely.
make money
It's
on
the
my own,
Jews.
so yeah.
yeah, because
And
that
that's the
example, like I didn't include in the video, like it was before we started recording the last episode, but because I think that like the reason why so many people hate Ronaldo and just glorify Messi is because Ronaldo represents everything they hate, because he represents hard work, and they can't, like, by glorifying Messi, who they attribute to natural talent, then it makes them feel better about their inadequacies, because it's like, oh well, he was just lucky, he was born that way, and
Mhm.
that's fine. But Ronaldo shows like it's not about natural talent, it's about hard work, and they can't abide by that, because then it's like, because then suddenly they have no excuse, because like he worked hard, why didn't they? And it's the same thing with communism, it's the same thing with all these ideologies, where you remove meritocracy completely out of the equation, and that's what they want. They want a built-in excuse to justify their failures, to justify their cowardice, their
Absolutely.
inaction.
Yep.
And and that's why like all this anti-Israel hatred is like, because Jewish people throughout the centuries, they did what everyone should always have done,
Mhm.
no matter what creed or um, you're from. Like, you're supposed to build wealth generation upon generation. That's how it works. Like, and what's the excuse for you guys not to do it? What's the excuse for you not to make sure that your kids have more than you did?
Mhm.
And make sure you teach them the right way so their kids have more than they did, and so on and on and on. That's how you build dynasties, that's how you build legacy. And we lost that. And so it's much easier to just blame everything on the Jews than have any kind of accountability.
Yeah.
And like, we have failed as a society. Like, all of this is happening because we have failed. It's not like a big conspiracy. No, it's because
Yeah.
we in the West have failed. And we need to have that accountability in order to make sure that moving forward we don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah. Accountability is the main ingredient
Oh,
to
leftists
make a
hate
change.
accountability.
Because
Truly.
Because we're here, me, Jasmine, we're sitting here today having this conversation, and we're admitting we used to be leftists. We used to believe in these talking points. You know, I don't know about you, but I was a leftist in the George Floyd
Hmm.
not area
Oh,
era.
recently?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, and I was like, I remember having arguments with people, like fiery arguments. Where I was like, no, he's a victim. This is terrible. This is terrible, and I believed in it because deep down, like our human empathy is often like exploited for these like political talking points as well. You
Absolutely.
know, we were, and then it ends up being also if at least like you have some kind of accountability, or like if you're humble enough to realize that you're wrong or that you might be wrong, I think that's the big difference between you being a leftist forever and never changing your mind and never opening your horizons, or just ending up thinking, hey, let me listen to the other side, actually listen actively and
Mhm.
consider their points, you know? And
Yeah.
most people don't
Do
have
that.
they don't have that from either
Yeah.
side, from just in general as a personality trait, and being humble and being able to admit, yeah, I used to be a leftist. Yeah, it was stupid. A lot of things I said were stupid. A lot of things I said was stupid. But
Yeah.
hey, I learned,
Absolutely.
you know?
I feel like that's a big part of it too. Like the fact that I was able to like kind of like distance myself from that side, open my mind and listen to like other perspectives. And, you know, even with like all of the geopolitics, like listening to like both sides, right? Like I just felt like once I listened to both sides actively, that's when I kind of made that conscious decision, because I just felt like it was really hard to align with the side when you don't really believe in that. But like you want to align because everybody else is aligned. Like that's how I felt. I felt like
Yeah.
the only reason I was aligning with them was because everybody else was.
Yeah.
And then the more I thought
Yeah.
about it, the more I like deeply kept thinking about it. That's not what I truly align with.
But what was your
Mhm.
aha moment, Jasmine? And
So
then
it didn't make sense like to, you know,
Jen,
keep living that lie just to have
Yeah.
that approval, right, from these kind of people. Like, and then you think about it, why the hell would I want their approval? Like, not, I mean,
Exactly.
especially today, I don't care for their approval, you know. And that's kind of what a lot of the leftists now are saying. Like, we're not going to change our mind. This is what it is. And you can't help but kind of feel bad for them, but they're actively making that choice, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Alberta was asking what was like
yeah,
your
the moment where you realize I don't really want to think this way
oh,
anymore.
you go ahead.
Maybe I should. Yeah, like what was the thing that you saw that made you kind of start changing the way you thought?
the hypocrisy of the left was like the number one for me for sure, because all the people around me at the time, or like I'm gonna say most, because maybe one person that wasn't is listening and they're like, you think I was like that? No, most people, I'm gonna say like 98% of the people around me were leftists, like diehard leftists, and they were really hypocritical. I went through like a personal life situation of domestic violence, and these were the same people that would go to all the marches and do all the things, yada 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 yada. And then when I went through my personal situation, I thought that they would stand with me and that they would be like as supportive and as fiery as they were like in the protests and in all these things. But there was absolute silence, and there was actually abuser apologia. So they were like being apologists to my abusers.
No.
So
wow.
and I was like, wait. So like my whole belief system started crumbling because I started just questioning. Wait, what? Like, who are these people? What the, like,
Yeah.
what?
What did I support this whole time?
You know, what is it for?
You know, I think for me it was around 2020, 2021, especially when I started like finding more about Iran and stuff. But I don't know, like maybe it might sound a little shallow, but I just felt like the Republican Party and the moderate right, not the far right, were more supportive of what was going on in Iran. And that kind of like made me realize like how it wasn't the case with the left. It wasn't the case with the Democrats, right? Like they still don't. Even with the State of the Union speech, you know, when President Trump said we're going to take care of Americans, like if you believe American citizens
Yeah.
come first or illegals, you know, then stand up, and none of them stood up. So that I mean, but that was recent, obviously. But I would say like around that time, like 2021, um, especially with everything that was going on in Iran, I just felt like we were just getting so much more support from the right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my aha moment. Like, why would I
Yeah.
align myself with people that don't even believe that these atrocities are actually happening? Because during that time, I think it was 2019, there was like an uprising, like there was like a bunch of protests and riots, and a couple hundred people were killed. It was called Bloody November. It was pretty horrific. Not as January, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a couple hundred people that were killed in the streets. And so, yeah, silence, complete silence, no
It's so
support,
weird.
no, very much, very
Well,
much.
that doesn't sound like a shallow reason at all, though. It's personal too, because it's your ancestors, and you were talking a lot up in the beginning about how although you grew up as a Muslim, you started seeing like Persian culture and feeling like really like, whoa, this is so beautiful. I believe that this was like your sort of like this ancestral memory that's like deep in your DNA that kind of like just
Mm.
connected you with something that deep down is like it's your roots, like it's you, it's part of you. And maybe that's why you've also felt that, because you felt that kind of like calling, you felt that pull to like,
Yeah.
oh, this is me, like I'm seeing myself here.
Yeah. And it was more in a sense of like, I didn't feel that connection with Islam, I just felt like it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of just there. Whereas with, finding more about like Persian civilization, finding out about the dynasties, the kingdoms that we had, the way that they respected women and how they even held titles of power, right? Like you don't see that today. Um, it was very honorable, and I couldn't help but feel like I'm in a sense, if I continue down this path anyway, I would be betraying them, and not acknowledging the truth. And that's not really fair.
Well, that's beautiful, because like you're respecting
Yeah.
your ancestors without even directly knowing them as people, as just knowing history of it. You're doing more than a lot of people. I mean, most people here in the West are doing now, and I think
Yeah.
Thank you.
that
Yeah.
should be an inspiration for people, I think.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
I hope more Iranians realize that they're not originally Muslims. They're Zoroastrian, and they need to do more research and possibly even go back to their Zoroastrian roots. Truly. And I mean, even right now, like with everything going on, there's a huge growing of Christianity, and there's underground churches in Iran. There's a lot of movement within Christianity in Iran. So I'm happy about that too, because I feel like, and I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I would much rather live in a Christian society and in a Christian
Yeah.
country than live in a country like that, or live in any
Same.
kind of a extremist Muslim country like that. And I'm trying to be as nice as possible when I say that. But I mean, truly, like I just feel like there's just so much beauty in it, and I just feel like even with there's like a lot of people that are trying to like preserve that. There's a lot of like content creators and influencers that are trying to like preserve that, and they get a lot of backlash for it. And even like my sister-in-law, she's Norwegian descent, and I was telling her, like, because we were having a conversation, and she was just kind of like, oh, I don't really know much about it. And I was like, you need to learn, you need to like look into it. These are your ancestors. You're a
Yeah.
Viking,
Absolutely.
basically, like you're
Yeah,
a
that's cool.
Nordic. That's really cool. Like you should really look into that. And she was just kind of like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, like you should look, like your kids have this DNA in them. You have it in
Yeah.
you, like you really should look into it. And unfortunately, not a lot of American people do that. They don't really look into their bloodlines or history, or
People
maybe
are
they don't
guilted
know,
into it. They're
or they
they're
feel
guilted into it
guilted.
because you're white. You should be ashamed. Like your past. Ugh.
You're a
Viking,
colonizer.
Viking
Hmm.
barbaric. Oh,
Yeah.
horn hats, which is not even true, but horn helmets. Oh, they're bad. They went to countries and they were so bad, bad, bad. White, they're bad.
No,
And
I tell her all the time. I'm like, you should be proud of your culture. Like that's really, I mean, even though you're not like from there now, like recently, but that's still a huge fabric of
DNA.
your DNA.
Absolutely.
those are your people. Like you know, like you should learn about it. You should like if it were me, like that's what I would do. I would like invest as much free time as I could to learn about that. Like that's, you know, like don't feel bad about it. Like don't feel like
Like
you
that,
shouldn't.
yeah, like that disconnection, like it's very recent because I don't think it was a thing before the 20th century, where this disregard for history and like this complete disrespect for your ancestors and your roots, and like it's so bizarre to me. Like, why wouldn't you want to know more? And like we don't, like there are some countries in Europe where that thing, like that you were talking about, how in Iran they keep the records through the generations. But even that is another prime example of using something that should be a positive, because every country should do that. Like people should know where they come from,
Mhm.
but they use something that should be wholesome and positive as a means of control. And most countries in Europe don't do that. Like they do it, for example, in Iceland, but also they have to do it in Iceland because there's so few of them. They have to keep track, so there's not, incest going on. Um, they actually have, I believe, a dating. It's not a dating app. It's a website that you can then check like how related you are before you commit to dating too much that person. And but yeah, like I don't get it, especially like if you come from civilizations like Persia and Europe and Japan, and like why wouldn't you want to learn the history, like the real history, and like try to like just form some kind of connection to your ancestors and like visit the places they lived in, or cook recipes close to what they were eating, and simple
It's
things like that.
arrogance as well. It's a lot
Yeah,
of arrogance. It's like, oh, these people from like these times, they were naive. There's this idea, at least like in my growing
yeah,
up,
there were
I this
savages.
was what was I was told was like, oh, like people from back then, like they were, they were so, patriarchal, and like, they didn't care about human rights, and they did so many bad things that we should be ashamed of, and just, don't look into that, because it's like it's not a point of pride at all. And so I think for a lot of people it's that, it's like you are only allowed to be proud if like, at least, I did a lot of my growing up in America, and you're only allowed, at least that's what I experienced, was just people were only allowed to be proud if they were like from African American backgrounds, or if they were like black. And sure, people should be proud, of course, but don't tell us that because we're white we shouldn't be proud. That's kind of, that's mean, because white is not just, I also, that's always what confused me, is like, first thing I remember being like 12 years old and like looking at paper and like race. And I remember scratching my head like, what do you mean? What am I? Like, am I white? But like, I'm not completely white. Like, there's people that are more white skinned than me. So like, am I white? Oh yeah, it's like, if you're from like Europe or whatever, you're white. It's like, why are you putting us in the same package? Like, Europe has a whole plethora of cultures, of history, of everything, and apparently it's like, oh, just package us into the white catalog and just know that you're all terrible because you went to other countries and destroyed their native cultures. Okay, then that seems really bad, so I'm not gonna like be proud of that. And I would just
Anyway,
wish that
guys.
I was Hispanic. I was just wishing, like, please, like, let me
Aw,
be Hispanic. I can't be Asian because I can't pass, but like, please let me be Hispanic. Like, please let me just something I can be proud of.
I can relate to that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's
You
like
know?
self-hatred. Um, anyway, we've reached the 2 hour mark. Does anyone have any last remarks?
You're gonna say last words.
Yeah.
Last
Any
words.
final words?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have one more that I wanted to talk about real brief, and
No,
it's
it was a pretty good conversation. I'm glad we had it, and I'm glad we discussed a lot. And I just hope more and more people wake up to the reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah, I think I said my last words before Jasmine talked. So
Jasmine already said what I was going to say, so never mind.
I don't know where Alberto
You-
went.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
now I can.
Yeah, no, I wanted to say the same thing as Jasmine, that I hope people wake up, because honestly, it's getting worse and worse every year.
Yeah. I hope we all just, we're all from different backgrounds here in this call. Many of us are from different backgrounds, and I think we should all learn about them, be proud of them, regardless, white, Hispanic, Iranian, whatever it is. Like, this is proof that we can all talk, be from different places, have different cultures, and still be civilized and still understand the big problem in the West right now. I think
And
that's
align on that matter, yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, 'cause
and
ultimately-
recognize each other's beauty as well, like each other's cultural beauty. Like you can
Like,
recognize
all of
the
us,
beauty
like,
in
we
European
share the
culture,
same.
recognize the beauty in Persian culture, and
Yeah, because ultimately all of us share the same principles and values. And just to end this, where Alberto just says, like, it is getting worse, but at the same time, I think the last few months have given us all a renewed sense of hope with what happened in Venezuela, what's happening now in Iran, what's about to happen in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's plenty of reasons to hope that we have reached a point where a lot of people have finally known, like, enough's enough, and we have to start verifying the mistakes of the last few generations. And just I'm sure, I'm glad that Trump is the president, and he is finally doing what America is supposed to do, because this is the role that America should have as the leader of the free world. It's not to give money like Obama and Biden did to the Ayatollah. No, it's like to just say that evil will not be allowed to exist. And so yeah, I think we all have enough reason to hope that the tide is changing. And like we said last time, like, I think the domino effect of what's happening in Iran can be pretty monumental, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you once again, Jasmine, for coming on.
Thank you for
nice
having
meeting
me.
you.
Very
Thank
nice
you.
meeting you too.
And I hope, to anyone listening or watching, I hope you enjoyed our third episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.